Chat. What's up, guys? You might understand that this mic sounds a bit different, and that is because I put some different settings and I even added an equalizer. It's supposed to make everything at least to a good level, and that way I noticed throughout the VOD, I'm angry. I'm so disappointed you guys didn't tell me this, but I'm just kidding. But during my last stream, apparently I kept cutting in and out, and I found out it was because of the noise gate that I applied to kind of get rid of the noise of my keyboard and stuff. So I mean, obviously I'd love to hear what you guys think about the new mic, but yes, chat, we are gonna finish this freaking story. We're not finishing the book, but we are gonna be finishing the story Into the Pit in the first book of the Five Nights at Freddy's Fazbear Frights books. You thought it was because of lag? Oh, well, like the change of the oh, because of lag. No. It was because of the noise gate. Yeah, so yeah, no, I completely understand if you didn't want to point it out, but man, that would have been nice. Would have been nice to know. But I spent all night and essentially all day trying to tweak this microphone to make it sound a hell of a lot better. And yeah, please tell me if it's good or bad, because I can definitely edit shit again if need be. But you know, that aside, how are you guys doing, chat? You guys doing good? I see there's 4 of us today, so I think that's great. That's obviously an improvement. Hopefully we'll get some more throughout the stream, but yeah, how are you guys doing? All right. Oh, that's good to hear, Frame. Glad to see I see my my usuals. I see Dolly, I see Frame. Happy to see you guys, you know. Speaking of which, Frame, I think you especially would be happy to hear this. I am currently working on the Discord. I need to double check with some friends to see. I need to double check to see some stuff, but regardless of that, it is in the works. So hopefully I'll be able to. I know Discord Pog will be able to get it out. The plan is to eventually get the Discord out. And also, because I'm going to be finishing one of these stories, and I didn't realize how long these would take, I'm going to finish this story, and I'm just probably going to do a just chatting stream afterwards. We're going to keep the thumbnail, though. We're going to keep that because I didn't work a thumbnail for that because fucking YouTube live streams, Jesus. But yeah, we are going to finish this, and then yeah, no, you're good, friend. I got multiple friends who can help me with that. Yeah, once that Discord gets started, I should be able to put the link down below. So whenever that time comes. Whew, I'm ready. I am so ready. Hopefully now that the mic sounds better. Hopefully now that it sounds better, we'll be able to get more quality streamings. Just more quality streams. I'm a little disappointed in the performance of my Super Mario Sunshine video. I'm kind of sad that it's not as good. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. But yeah, no, I'm kind of disappointed that the Mario Sunshine video didn't do as good. It's still staying at 20 views, and I kind of get that. It's kind of niche of a topic. I was kind of late to the topic, but hopefully with the Cooking with Hanktendo, I'm deciding to follow a trend with that one, so hopefully that one does pretty good. So that's the plan. I mean, I got to 70 subscribers. That's progress enough for me to be happy, but damn, if you're comfortable with it, I'd really appreciate some I don't know, what's the fucking word for it? Just some outreach to others. If you think they'd be interested in my content, I would really appreciate that. But that's enough self-promotion. Let's get back into our story. So, for those who have not joined our stream, or for those who are watching the VOD out of order for some stupid reason, probably because the mic actually sounds good in this one. Oh, okay. I will get to that in a hot second because that's a really good question. I'll get to that in a second. I wanted to finish what I had to say. When we last left off, there was a boy named Oswald, and he lived in a boring town that was slowly dying, essentially, because it had a mill that provided most of the jobs in the town, and once the mill closed down, Everyone left. It became decrepit. It became a shell of what it once was. And Oswald's still living in that town because they still had a steady job there, but now they are poor. They're living in a just shell of a town. He's sad. He gets angry at his dad because they don't move or they don't have anything interesting to do in the town. And so one day, he's over the summer just going to the library and going to a place called Jeff's Pizza. And essentially, he finds a ball pit at Jeff's Pizza, and he decides to play a trick on his dad that instead of going to him when his dad says that he arrived to pick him up, he's going to hide in the ball pit that is in the pizzeria to kind of hide from his dad and give him a little scare and a little prank, you know, as every young kid wants to be that watches Logan Paul. And essentially, he goes into the ball pit. I know I have a problem with saying the plan is, and essentially, trust me, I've listened to my recording sessions often. I know. He goes through the ball pit and he gets traveled back to 1985 when Jeff's Pizza used to be Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And so he enjoys it. It's a lively place. There's arcade games and he gets to meet some friends. He's having a great time. It's way better than his lonely life out in the boring town. And so he decides, you know what, I'm going to come here every day. I'm going to go into the ball pit, and the more he goes there, the more he realizes the yellow rabbit that you see on the cover of this book right here. This rabbit essentially is this universe's purple guy, maybe? At least he's some sort of representation of purple guy being the spring Bonnie murdering kids, because in this universe, one day he goes into the ball pit and everyone's screaming out of the pizzeria. It's horrifying. It's terrifying. He doesn't know what to do. He sees the yellow rabbit. He follows it. He follows it down a hallway, and essentially he finds a room full of dead kids, and the rabbit wants Oswald to be the next kid that he kills. And so Oswald runs away back into the ball pit, but the rabbit follows him, and essentially once Oswald gets out, his dad's trying to find him. He doesn't know where he's been. And so the dad picks Oswald out of the ball pit, but then out of nowhere, the yellow rabbit also comes out of the ball pit, snatches Oswald's dad, and only the rabbit comes back out. This is a big problem because this murderous yellow rabbit is now just there with Oswald. The problem is, Oswald can't find help because to everyone else, that yellow rabbit looks like Oswald's dad. And so now he has to find a way to get rid of the yellow rabbit and save his dad. In a way, he wants to find a way to at least somehow save his dad. He wants to at least find a way to get out of this shit. He doesn't know what the fuck is going on, and we'll see how it unfolds as we continue reading. We just left off where he just started a new year at school, and now he found a brand new friend who just moved into the town, which the mom foreshadowed early in the book by the name of Gabrielle, who's most likely going to be the secondary character, going to be the supporting character to Oswald. So without further ado, let's get into the questions that the chat had, because I know I saw one. And that was from Dolly, of course. What made me want to do YouTube? So I'll answer this before we get started with the actual reading. Honestly, it was just because I watched YouTube since I was really young. I started watching Nintendo Capri Sun play Yoshi's Story. That's one of the earliest memories I have of a YouTube experience. 1 second while I move this mic. Yep, sorry. It picks up the mic movement a lot. Terribly sorry, but I watched him play Yoshi's Story on the N64, and I don't know, just that experience, I immediately knew I wanted to do that. Or at least, I was so fascinated with it that I watched it 10 years, for roughly 10 years of my life. Maybe most likely more than 10 years of my life has been watching YouTube and watching many, many YouTubers over the course of my life. And I just knew as soon as I found I was able to do it myself, it was the job for me. I've been through multiple jobs in my life, from janitorial to cashiering to serving ice cream, which is funny because there's an ice cream place in this book. I don't know, just out of nowhere, God, it just sprung to me that I wanted to do this. How can I be a good YouTuber like you? Frame, that is a weird question to ask because I guess in a weird way, I don't consider myself good yet until I get to 100. I feel like that's when I'm going to really consider, once I pop off truly on YouTube is when I'm going to consider myself good. I'd say from how I learned how to do it, I watched content creators that I knew I wanted to be. And then also watching, like, I watched a lot of YouTube. I knew a lot of people who knew how to play the algorithm. I learned from, like, fucking PewDiePie. I learned from him. I learned from other Nintendo YouTubers how they've learned to do better with the algorithm. I've learned, I guess you could say I learned from FNAF 2 YouTubers as well because of what I'm doing right now. But it's just literally an experience thing. And, man, it's you just have to, I mean, my advice is to just find out what editing style, like, stick to content. Okay, actually, I have an actual piece of advice, if I can give it. Make sure to always put out your stuff. Don't be afraid to put any amount of content out there on your channel, whatever it is. If it's a cooking video, if it's a makeup video, if it's a podcast where you're talking with your friends, whatever it is, I highly recommend that you decide to always make a video and then learn. You start, like, you, Dolly and Frame, I know both of you started when you were both relatively young. That experience helps you a long way. That already gets you a foothold into what many other people who want to do YouTube, like me, that already puts you guys in a really good foothold, and it already gets you guys at a good head start so that when you're older, and essentially at my age, you already are way ahead of me in progress because you've already developed your style. Just it's essentially my one piece of advice. Don't be afraid to make a video and just let it out on the internet. Now, granted, make sure that it is appropriate and all that jazz, but still, you need to enjoy your content and you need to enjoy the idea of other people watching your content. A big reason why I love doing content is because afterwards, me and my friends, we all join a voice call on Discord and then we'll watch the premiere that I always do with my mainline videos. And I fucking love it, bro. It's always so nice. It's so nice to always get initial reactions, and at the end, everyone's just like, yeah, Hank, that's a good video. Doing YouTube, I'm now a sucker for any form of praise or growth that I get. Dude, Dolly, if that's the way you felt like you had to go, that is not a problem at all. I was just using you as an example because you did YouTube way younger than I was ever able to do. But yeah, I mean, granted, I did a podcast for a year. I just talked about stuff. I need to find out how to delete it because I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I want to get rid of that. Even though part of me, I'm already, like, my TikTok compilations, I want to delete as well. But I have to learn that that was a time capsule of my content back then. But, like, man, that delete button looks pretty enticing, I'll say that. Okay. With that out of the way, let us get into the story of Into the Pit. He took the bus home from school. When he came inside, the yellow thing was vacuuming the living room. He didn't ask it any more questions. It wasn't as if it could give him answers anyway. And besides, if he was going to make his plan work, he was going to have to act like everything was normal. And as anybody who had seen him in the 4th grade class play knew, acting was not one of his talents. Instead, he did what he was supposed to do when life was normal. When his real dad was vacuuming the living room, he got the feather duster out of the cleaning closet and dusted the coffee table, the end tables, and the lamps. He emptied the wastebasket and neatened the throw pillows on the couch. Then he went to the kitchen and took out the garbage and the recycling. Once he was outside, it was tempting to run, but he knew running was not the answer. If everybody saw the yellow thing as his dad, nobody would help him. The yellow thing would always catch him. He went back inside. His chores done, he walked right past the yellow thing. "I'm gonna go chill out a while before dinner," he said, even though the possibility of relaxing in any way was unimaginable. He went to his room, but he didn't close the door. Instead, he took off his shoes, sprawled on the bed, and started drawing in his sketchbook. He didn't want to draw mechanical animals, but they seemed to be all he could draw. He shut his sketchbook and started reading a manga, or at least pretending to. Normal. The plan would only work if he acted like everything was normal. When the rabbit appeared in his doorway, he managed not to gasp. It beckoned for him the same way it had been... It beckoned for him the same way it had when it led him into the murder room at Freddy Fazbear's, and he followed it into the kitchen. On the table was one of the grocery store pizzas his dad kept in the freezer, baked to a pleasing golden brown, and 2 glasses of the fruit punch Oswald liked. The pizza had already been sliced, which was a relief, because Oswald couldn't imagine what he would have done if he had seen the thing holding a knife. I'm sorry I'm messing up a bunch, chat. Yeah, let it be known, doing YouTube and stuff nowadays is like the only time I have to actually talk, and then talking often after a long time of not talking at all, it's kind of hard, especially when you're trying to read and not sound like a complete dumbass. Oswald sat down at the table and helped himself to a slice of the pizza. He didn't feel much like eating, but he knew he couldn't act like anything was wrong. He took a bite of the pizza, a sip of punch. "Aren't you going to eat anything, Dad?" he asked, but it was hard calling that thing Dad. But he changed. But he managed. What's up? Hank, your content is consistently intriguing and interesting. You have good comedic timing, and you do make your thoughts on games and your experience is clear and interesting to listen to. Well, thank you very much, Dolly. I really appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say. I can't help you with that, Frame. Unfortunately, the pygmy costume is here to stay. I will tell you, do not put the Sans head on. That is when you know you've gone too far. And yes, I really do enjoy what I do, especially now that I've watched a bunch of Vinesauce. I've also been introduced to streaming, and I didn't realize I would enjoy doing especially this, a reading stream, as much as I thought I would. I'm not going to make you put the pig head on. That's your choice. I'm not telling you to do anything, but you should do it. The yellow thing sat across from him in silence with his unblinking stare and frozen grin. An untouched pizza slice on a plate in front of it beside an untouched glass of punch. Could it even eat? Oswald wondered. Did it need to? What was it anyway? At first he thought it was a guy in a suit, but now he wasn't so sure. Was it some kind of highly sophisticated animatronic animal, or a real flesh and blood giant bunny? He didn't know which possibility was the most disturbing. With great effort, he finished the pizza slice and glass of punch, then said, "Thanks for dinner, Dad. I'm going to get a glass of milk and go do my homework now." The yellow thing just sat there. I'm not gonna... also, my idea for my channel is just to edit an image for every line I say, so I can have no sleep and have an excuse. Oh, man. I highly recommend you get sleep. I've learned pretty recently that getting a good amount of sleep is really nice, especially to have the energy to do these streams. I have spent a lot of days just editing until it was like past midnight, and as nice as those can be, they can really, I guess, as fulfilling as it is to me to get a lot of editing done, I've had to learn recently to take breaks. And that's really important, especially if you're starting out. Do what you want, but I will say, think about, like, try to make sure that you're not overexerting yourself, because especially when you're starting out, you're not going to have the best hardware, you're not going to have the best editing software. Like, try to keep it at least in some simple form, just to make sure that, you know, you as a person is learning to adapt. You as a person are learning to adapt to YouTube as a whole. But dude, if that's really what you want to do, highly, I'm cheering you on. Just know that. I'm trying to remember. Oh, Oswald went to the refrigerator. He checked to make sure the yellow thing wasn't watching and poured some milk into a bowl. Once he was in his room, he didn't close and lock the door because he wouldn't if he were home with Dad. Normal. Normal so as to not arouse suspicion. He slid the bowl of milk under his bed where Jinx was still hiding. "It's going to be okay, girl," he whispered. He hoped he was right. He sat on his bed and in a few minutes heard Jinx lapping the milk. He knew from past experience that even when terrified, she couldn't turn down dairy products. He made a half-hearted attempt at his homework, but he couldn't concentrate. All he could think about was his dad. The yellow thing had dragged his dad into the pit and under the surface. Did this mean his dad was at Freddy Fazbear's circa 1985? Wandering around an arcade of... Wandering around an arcade of games he had played as a kid? That was the most likely explanation, unless the yellow thing had killed... No. He couldn't let himself think that. His dad was alive. He had to be. The only way to know was to go back into the pit. He said the thing! He said the thing! Sorry. But first he was going to have to get out of the house without the yellow thing noticing. Oswald waited until dark, then waited some more. Finally he grabbed his shoes and tiptoed out of his room and into the hall in his sock feet. The door to his parents' bedroom was open. He sneaked a glance inside as he crept past. The yellow thing was lying on his back next to his parents' bed. It appeared to be staring at the ceiling. Or maybe it wasn't staring. Maybe it was asleep. It was hard to tell since its eyes didn't close. Did it even need to sleep? Holding his breath, he passed his parents' room and tiptoed into the kitchen. If the yellow thing caught him, he could always say he was getting a drink of water. The kitchen was the best escape route. The door there was less squeaky than the front door. He slipped into his shoes and pulled the door open, slowly, inch by inch. When it was open just wide enough, he slipped through and shut it softly beside him. And then he ran. He ran through his neighborhood and past neighbors walking their dogs and kids riding bicycles. Some people looked at Oswald strangely, and he couldn't figure out why. People ran in this neighborhood all the time. But then he realized he wasn't running like he was doing it for exercise. He was running like something was chasing him, and it might be. It was a long way to Jeff's Pizza on foot, and Oswald knew he couldn't keep up this pace all the way there. He slowed to a walk after he was out of his neighborhood and chose to walk side streets instead of the more direct route so he'd be harder to follow. He was afraid Jeff's Pizza might be closed by the time he reached it, but when he arrived, hot and out of breath, the lighted open sign was still on. Inside, Jeff was at the counter watching a ball game on TV, but otherwise, the place was empty. "You know, we just serve whole pizzas at night. No slices," Jeff said in his usual monotone. As always, he looked exhausted. "Yeah, I just stopped by to get a soda to go," Oswald said, his gaze roaming to the roped-off ball pit. Jeff looked a little puzzled, but finally said, "Okay, let me get a pie out of the oven. Then I'll get it for you. Orange, right?" "Right, thanks." As soon as Jeff disappeared into the kitchen, Oswald ran to the back corner and dove into the pit. "You said the thing again!" Dude, I love this book. I see we have Squidmeister joining. Glad to see you here, man, if you couldn't tell. We are finishing off the Into the Pit story of the first Fazbear Frights book, so we're happy to have you. The familiar musty smell filled his nose as he sank beneath the surface. He sat on the pit's floor. He counted to 100 as he always did, even though he wasn't sure it served any purpose in getting him to make the jump to Freddy Fazbear's in 1985. He shifted on the pit's floor and felt something solid press against his lower back. A shoe. It felt like the sole of a shoe. He scooted around and grabbed it. It was a boot. A steel-toed work boot like his dad used to wear to work at the mill and now wore to his job at the snack space. He moved his hand up a little. An ankle! An ankle in the kind of thick boot sock his dad liked. He crawled farther across the floor of the pit. The face. He had to feel the face. It was some giant furry head like the yellow things. Oh, if it was some giant furry head like the yellow things, he might never stop screaming. But he had to find out. His hand found a shoulder. He reached to the chest and felt the cheap fabric of a white undershirt. He was shaking as he reached higher. He felt an unmistakably human face. Skin and stubble. A man's face. Was it Dad? And was he... He had to be alive. He had to be. Oswald had seen shows where people who had been in emergency situations suddenly developed amazing strength and found themselves able to lift the front end of a car or tractor. This was the kind of strength Oswald needed to find. His dad wasn't a big man, but he was still a man and weighed at least twice as much as his son. He had to move his dad if he was going to save him. If this even was his dad. If this wasn't some kind of cruel hoax set up by the yellow thing to trap him. Oswald couldn't let himself think these thoughts. Not if he was going to do what he had to do. He got behind the person, grabbed under his armpits, and pulled. Nothing happened. Dead weight, Oswald thought. No, not dead. Please, not dead. He pulled again, this time with more force, making a noise that was somewhere between a grunt and a roar. This time the body moved and Oswald pulled again, standing up and getting the person's head and shoulders above the surface. If it was his dad, pale and unconscious, but breathing, definitely breathing, and around him, not Freddy Fazbear's in 1985, but the normal, present-day weirdness of Jeff's Pizza. How could Oswald get him out? He could call Mom. As a nurse, she would know what to do, but what if she thought he was crazy or lying? He felt like the boy who cried wolf, or the boy who cried rabbit. He felt it before he saw it, the presence behind him, the awareness of something in his personal space. Before he could turn around, a pair of furry yellow arms locked around him in a fearsome embrace. Do I play Smash Bros? Yes, I used to, but I'm just not into online competitive games as much as other people, so currently I do not play it. I have not bought a single character in Challenger Pack 2. He got his right arm free enough to jab his elbow into the yellow thing's midsection. He got loose, but the thing was blocking the exit to the pit. He couldn't get out of the pit by himself, let alone with his poor, passed-out dad. Acting more than thinking, Oswald charged at the rabbit with his head down. If he could just throw it off balance or knock it under the surface, maybe he could make it end up in 1985 Freddy Fazbear's and buy Oswald and his dad some time to escape. He headbutted the yellow thing and knocked it into the ropes and netting that surrounded the ball pit. It stumbled a little, righted itself, and then, arms outstretched, lunged towards Oswald. It pushed Oswald against the wall of the pit, its eyes dead as always. It unhinged its jaws to reveal double rows of fangs as sharp as scimitars. Mouth open freakishly wide, it lunged for Oswald's throat, but he blocked it with his arm. Pain pierced Oswald's forearm as the yellow thing sank its fangs into its skin. His skin. Oswald's a boy after all. Oswald used his good arm to punch the rabbit hard in the face before the fangs pierced too deeply. Fangs. What kind of crazy rabbit had fangs? The thing's jaws released their grip, but there was no time to survey the damage because the thing was lurching towards Oswald's dad, its jaws wide open, like a snake about to swallow its unsuspecting prey. Its fangs were red with Oswald's blood. Oswald elbowed the yellow thing aside and moved between it and his still unconscious father. "You leave my dad alone!" he yelled. Then used the netting to bounce off and clamber onto the yellow thing's back. He hit its head with his fists, scratched at its eyes, which didn't feel like a living creature's eyes. The rabbit stumbled back into the netting and ropes, then grabbed Oswald's arms and slung him hard off his shoulders and into the pit. Yelled alone. I know. No, my brother's upstairs, so he got to hear me. If that makes you feel some reason any better. Oh, yelled alone. The word alone. Yeah, that's true. That too. Oswald fell headfirst under the surface, grateful that the bottom of the pit was soft. His arm was throbbing, his whole body was exhausted, but he had to get up. He had to save his dad. Like those ancient Greek heroes Gabrielle had told him about, he had to be brave and face the monster. Oswald rose unsteadily to his feet. Somehow, when it shook Oswald off, the yellow thing must have gotten tangled in the ropes and netting that lined the ball pit. A rope was looped around his neck, and it grasped the rope with its big paws, trying to get free. Oswald couldn't understand why it was failing to free itself until he saw that the yellow thing's feet weren't touching the floor of the pit. The yellow thing was suspended from the rope, which was tied securely to a metal rod at the top of the ball pit. The rabbit had hanged itself. Its mouth was opening and closing like it was gasping for breath, but no sound came out. Its paws clawed desperately at the ropes. Its stare, still terrifying in its blankness, was aimed in Oswald's direction, as if it were asking him for help. Oswald certainly wasn't going to rescue it. After a few more seconds of struggling, the yellow thing was still. Oswald blinked. Hanging from the rope was nothing but a dirty, yellow, empty rabbit costume. His dad's eyes opened. Oswald rushed to his side. "I don't understand why I'm here," Dad said. His face was pale and unshaven, his eyes puffy with dark half-moons under them. "What happened?" Oswald debated what to say. "You were attacked and left for dead by a giant evil rabbit who tried to replace you, and I was the only person who could see it wasn't you. Even Mom thought it was you." No, it sounded too crazy, and Oswald didn't relish the idea of spending years in therapy saying, "But the evil rabbit was real." Jinx was the only other member of the family who knew the truth, and being a cat, she wasn't going to say anything in his defense. Besides, his dad had already suffered enough. Oswald knew it was wrong to lie. He also knew that lying was not the skill he had. When he tried, he always got all nervous and sweaty and said, a lot. But in this situation, a lie might be the only way forward. He took a deep breath. "So, I hid in the ball pit to play a prank on you, which I shouldn't have done. You came to look for me, and I guess you must have hit your head and lost consciousness." Oswald took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean for things to get out of hand." This part, at least, was the truth. "I accept your apologies, son," Dad said. He didn't sound mad, just tired. "But you're right, you shouldn't have done it, and Jeff really should get rid of this ball pit before he has a lawsuit on his hands." "Definitely," Oswald said. He knew he would never set foot in the pit again. He would miss Chip and Mike, but he needed to make some friends in his own time. His mind flashed to the girl on the bench at recess, Gabrielle. She seemed nice, smart too. They had a good talk. Oswald reached for his dad's hand. "Let me help you stand up." With Oswald steadying him, Dad rose to his feet and let his son lead him to the exit of the ball pit. He paused to look up at the hanging yellow costume. "What is that creepy thing?" "I have no idea," said Oswald. This, too, was the truth. They climbed out of the pit and walked through Jeff's Pizza. Jeff was wiping the counter, still watching the ball game on the restaurant's TV. Had he not seen or heard anything? Still holding Oswald's hand, which was the last time he had... Jesus, I can't read this. Still holding Oswald's hand. When was the last time he held his dad's hand? That's the closest I'm going to get to getting that right. Dad lifted his son's arm and looked at it. "You're bleeding." "Yeah," Oswald said. "I must have scraped my arm when I was trying to pull you out of the pit." His dad shook his head. "Like I said, that thing is a public safety issue. Just sticking up a sign saying keep out isn't enough." He let go of Oswald's arm. "We'll get your arm cleaned up at home. Then your mom can dress the wound once she gets home from work." Oswald wondered what his mom would say when she saw the fang marks. As they approached the front door, Oswald said, "Dad, I know I can be a pain sometimes, but I really do love you, you know?" Dad looked at him with an expression that seemed both pleased and surprised. Jesus. "Same here, kiddo." He ruffled Oswald's hair. "But you do have a terrible taste in science fiction movies." "Oh yeah?" Oswald said, smiling. "Well, you have terrible taste in music. And you like boring ice cream." Together they opened the door into the fresh night air, and behind them Jeff called, "Hey kid, you forgot your soda." And that is Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit, Chapter 1, or Story number 1, Into the Motherfucking Pit. Let's go. And then